Did they already do the thing?
I saw no bumper. I saw no intro slide. Maybe we just don't see it.
Nope,
Ah,
Josh and Mark, you two are on and the opening bumper closed.
oh, I thought this was like the Truman Show. Oh, good. Okay, hi everybody.
Hi,
That was so quick.
everyone.
I was texting.
Nobody here but
I
us
was,
chickens.
I was texting Mark here. I was like, "What are we to do?" And he's like, "We should probably talk about spring." And it's like, okay, well, we should. I wish they would tell us when. Okay, good. So we're good. We're good to go. Welcome everybody to our little walk to production on the path to production. Hi, Mark. Good to see you, buddy.
Likewise, yeah, it's like you're right next to me, only you're not.
I mean, it's fates will conspire to have us in the same place yet again soon, my friend. I sure hope so. Anyway.
Yeah,
Um.
I love the formal stuff, but this is almost better in some ways because we're covering formal topics, but we're doing it in a very informal way. So everybody who's joining us is just kind of like joining in the little hacking circle.
Okay. Very cool. Yeah, I love this. This is great. This is what look, you're Mark Heckler. You're my friend. You're over at Microsoft. That's your Twitter and
Yes,
other things, I suppose,
yes,
on your handle. And I'm Josh. Nice to meet you. I'm over at I'm at on the Spring team over at VMware, where you used to be. You've moved sideways, lateral move. And then I'm on YouTube at Coffee Software, so that's all very good. We're here to talk to you about how to get apps to production with Spring and Azure and Microsoft, right? But this is just one little thread on which you can tug to sort of learn more about building better software with Spring and the larger ecosystem. There's so much more, and to that end, there is the Spring Academy. The Spring Academy is easy to follow. It's free, by the way. This is for a lot of use cases. For a good many use cases, you can learn what you need to get skilled up with the Spring Academy. There is a path to certification, and even there, the certification itself is not free, but it's markedly cheaper than it would have been, say, a year ago. So this is a good deal all around. You can learn all the skills, and if you don't want the certification, you can do a lot of that for free. And then if you want to get certified, that's great too. Mark, I don't know if I could get certified. I'm not sure if I'm smart enough, but I think the people that pass that test are amazing.
yeah.
Um,
I agree. I'm just in awe of them as well. So
yeah, it's good stuff. I followed some of those exams, some of those courses. Whoa, those are good. That's the kind of stuff that would have made our particular journey to Spring a lot easier so many years ago, I think.
agreed.
Yeah. Are you doing Spring 1? I sure
I
hope I'm going to
am.
do it.
I can't believe I got past the selection committee
The
somehow,
censors,
but I'm going to be there.
the
So
committee. Yeah,
right.
and so that'll be in sunny Las Vegas in August. Famously, a great time to go to the desert. And it's like who cares? You're going to be in a hotel. We've done this before. We did a Spring 1 in a hotel at one point. I think we did a couple. I mean,
Yeah.
they're all in hotels, but in Vegas in particular, you live in a hotel. So Spring 1, come meet Mark and me. It's going to be fine.
It's going to be an amazing setup. We'll have, reasonably decent people like us there and great people like you folks who show up to hopefully share and all learn and grow together. So yeah, come join us.
Yeah, absolutely. It'll be great. It'll be fun. Tonight, well, it's, by the way, hello, everybody from all around the world. Look at this wonderful crowd. I'm glad to see you all here from hither and thither, right? Everywhere and everywhere in between. They joined us this morning. Is it morning still in your time zone?
No, just slid into afternoon moments ago. Well, an hour ago.
Okay. That's like those PowerPoint slides we were talking about, right?
Right. Yeah. Slides.
Right.
It's all about the
We-
slides. That and ball
We're trying to
bearings.
figure out what a slide is, and not exactly sure. Look, friends, I think we need to talk about Spring and Azure, so let's dive right into it. Mark, you've been playing with the new Spring Boot 3.1.
I have.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Oh,
And so
yeah.
I think it's the coolest thing. 3.1 has some amazing new features, so I'm hoping we could talk about that and kind of like look at how that is a really great way to build software intended for production. And then we can talk about how to take it to production, right? Because it's not there in production out of the box. It takes some work. So I think we'll have a fruitful hour. What do you think?
Yeah, we want to cover the entire journey, and that starts with an idea, and hopefully lands in production. Because once it lands there, then it can actually be put to good use, and we can like go home because there'll never be any bugs and there'll never be any enhancements, right?
Certainly not in your code.
Right. No,
Okay.
absolutely. You've seen my code. Thank you for lying
Yeah.
so delicately for me.
Okay, my friend, let me see. I'm going to share my screen. Do I have the
Do you have the power?
the most incriminating thing on my laptop is that I'm running Parallels as well.
Oh
Let's
dear.
see here. Share screen.
What could possibly go
And
wrong?
okay. Whew. All right. Can you see my screen?
No.
Uh,
I can
oh, I
see
have to
you.
add
Oh,
it.
wait. There we
Oh,
go.
there you go. Okay, it got added. Neat. All right, good stuff. Okay, friends. First things first. Let's build some new software. Mark, you're here. Feel free to interject, of course. But let's get going. By the way, another admonishment: if you hadn't already gotten one, meet the Spring team at Spring One. I think we covered that, but just in case, it's right here. Okay, so look, Spring Boot 3.1 is out. It came out on the 18th of May. It is the first point release of the 3.x generation. It is a huge paradigm-shifting new release that has a lot of nice features and a lot of new opportunities. So we're going to go here to start that Spring.io, and we're going to build a new service. I'm going to call this Service, and I'm going to call it Service because I'm great with names. You know that, Mark. Famously, I'm just very good with names. And I get that from my dad. I get that from my dad. My dad had we had a little white dog that showed up, and my dad named it White Dog, and then that dog disappeared after like 10 years. I don't know where he went. Maybe he went to a farm upstate. Who knows? And then my dad named the new dog Two. Now I don't know if that's because it was TWO as in the second or TOO as in also, but either way, it was Two. And my mom, to this day, she insists that I'm very lucky that that she named me, right? Because you can only imagine what my dad would have named a little white baby. So we've got this. We've got this new thing here. We have the default build tool. Obviously, here, friends, we have the choice of build tool. The default these days is Gradle. You can still use Maven. Obviously, it's not going anywhere, but the default out of the box, out of the gate, is Gradle. I'm of two minds about this. I don't know about you, Mark, but I've got a lot of history with Maven. I don't know much about Gradle. So this year, I've got two New Year's resolutions. One is I'm gonna learn Gradle, and the other one is I'm gonna lose some weight. And I'm definitely learning Gradle. It's going well there. So
Yeah,
that's good.
I just want to interject here because I had those same two resolutions and I was done with both of them by January 2nd. So I'm just kidding. I will still occasionally use Gradle with Groovy. So at least there's one,
Yeah.
right? Some semi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I wish it were Gradle and Kotlin, but whatever, it's fine.
We can do that, but another time,
Yeah.
maybe another day, perhaps.
Yeah. Okay, so we have a choice down here of what version of Java to use. Now, friends, look, let's just be very clear here. It seems you have 4 radio boxes, but you don't actually have 4 choices. You've only got 2 reasonable choices. The choices are Java's 17 and later, right? These other ones, Java's.
Why can't we use the Java Infinity one over to the far right?
Far right?
Yeah, 20, 17, 11, Infinity.
Oh yeah, and exactly. That latest and greatest version. You're right. Red, left to right. That is the right version. Absolutely. But friends, these other 2 versions, Java's 8 and 11, these are not actually choices. These are here just for the lulz, just for the memes. They're just here to see who makes terrible life decisions. You should never ever choose these versions of Java, okay? Java 17 is required to use Spring Boot 3. So we're going to use Java 17 or later. And by the way, friends, we talk about Java 17, but bear in mind, that's nearly 2 years old. We're staring down Java 21 due any minute now, right, Mark? I mean, I don't know when it's coming, but soon. So there's that. And obviously, Java 17 it's better, right? It's just a really great release of Java. It's faster and more technically, it's technically superior in every way. It's more syntax rich, more robust, more performant, more container ready. It's also morally superior in every way. You won't like the look of sadness and despair in your children's eyes when they find out that you're using Java 8 in production. Don't do it. Be the change you want to see in the world. Use Java 17 or later. And just judging purely by the version number alone, I think we're going to be Java 17 is more than twice as good as Java 8, right? That's a fact. That's a fact, Mark. Okay, so we're going to leave that in. We're going to build a new application. We're going to use the GraalVM native image support. We're going to use the Spring Boot actuator. We're going to use the web support. We're going to use Spring Data JDBC. We're going to use Postgres. We're going to use test containers, dev tools. Actually, I'm not even sure if we need the actuator. Do we have time? How much time do we have? Yeah, we have a little time. That's fine. So we're going to bring in all these different dependencies, and we're going to hit generate. And we're going to open this up in our IDE, and it doesn't all that much matter what ID you use, so long as you can support Java 17 and the build tool of your choice, which is to say most IDEs, most tools these days will work just fine. You can rock VI and the language server, and that would be fine too, right? You're fine. You're going to be able to use these this configuration almost anywhere. Or I guess not VI. I mean NeoVim or something like that.
Yeah.
The good
Well,
stuff.
I was going to
Yeah.
say, for those who don't know, behind the scenes, Josh and I have these Vim versus Emacs discussions all the time, and
Oh,
I still love him, even though he loves Emacs. So I don't know. But,
yeah. Well, I just like it when my IDE releases more often than every 9 years. You know, it's just
yeah.
nice.
I'm still
Okay.
trying to figure out how to get out of Vim, but eventually I'll get there.
Okay, so we're gonna build an application. Friends, first things first, Mark and I are all about that git clone run life. We want our code to be as reusable and approachable as possible for anybody who's coming to it. And so to that end, I want to make it so that I can git clone and run this code base in a sort of convenient, portable, sort of local fashion. And one of the ways I can do that is to use something to sort of stand up my infrastructure. In this case, I have a Postgres database, or at least it's assumed that I have a Postgres database. The question is, where is that Postgres database? I don't actually have that installed on my machine. And so one of the big features, one of the big tentpole features in Spring Boot 3.1 is new support for test containers and or Docker Compose. And so here we're using test containers. The Spring initializer was nice enough to generate a test class that already has a test container instance, a bean for our Docker image that we want. And it has this supplementary main method. This main method is a test main method. It's in the source test package, but you can see it's going to delegate to the main method, right? The actual main method. It's going to delegate to that, and then it's going to enrich the configuration for the application, pointing to this configuration class, and then it's going to run as normal, but with this extra configuration class, this test configuration class, okay? And when it runs this, it's going to find this test container, and it's going to spin it up, and it'll automatically hydrate things like spring.datasource.url and password and username and all that stuff. And so we don't have to do that. You don't have to have like a separate property file called -dev.properties or whatever, because this is just going to automatically know how to connect to this Postgres instance. And it knows that because of this annotation here, @service connection. This identifies this to Spring Boot as a thing that can provide credentials, okay? There's similar, there's a similar mechanism behind the scenes for Docker Compose as well. The thing is, friends, I'm going to be using dev tools. Dev tools are a great way to make changes and iterate rapidly on your code base. And as I'm making changes, I want to see those changes reflected in my code instantly. So dev tools is great because the core conceit behind dev tools is when I have the JVM and it's up and running, and all I do is throw away the application context, that's actually really quick. It's the JVM itself that takes a hot minute to reload. So if you just keep that warm and never reset it, then things go much more quickly. You can actually make changes and see them all but instantly. The only thing that would spoil that particular goal is if this were reset as well. If I had to respin up the Docker image each time I made a change. And so what I want to do is I'm going to go to my build and bring in the DevTools as a test implementation dependency, okay? And the reason I want to do that is because I want access to the annotation called @restartScope. @restartScope gives me a way to tell Spring to preserve this bean, this instance, across DevTools restarts. So it's going to throw away every bean except this one, okay? Okay, so let's go ahead and run this. I'm just going to run it as I would any other main method. It's going to spin up. It's going to take a second, right, or a few seconds even, because it's going to actually stand up the Docker image for us, right? You can see that Docker server, container Postgres latest is starting. All this stuff is happening behind the scenes, right? But there it is. It's up and running, and we have the actual instance. Now we can make changes, and that we shall. The first thing I want to do is actually introduce some production code, some actual new business logic. We're going to build an entity to talk to our database here. We're going to build a record, which I love. I know you do too, right? These are amazing, right? Records are amazing. So we're going to use that, and then we'll have a repository here to deal with records of the type of data that we want. So this is all stack standard stuff. I'm sure you've all seen this kind of thing before. And then we're going to build a customer HTTP controller, private final customer repository, inject that, and git mapping. Okay, customers, collection, collection customer. All right, return this dot repository dot find all. And let's see here. We got the at controller, and we want the at response body. And I want some data, right? I want some data in the application. So the thing I'm going to do is I'm going to tell Spring Boot to initialize itself using the source main resources schema file and data file, right? So get rid of that. We'll create this file here, data.sql, and we'll say delete from customer, insert into customer. And we need some people in the Spring community, legends all. So of course we've got Mark, of course. I can spell. I got this, Mark. Don't worry. Okay, there. Okay. We got myself. Hi. We got Olga. We've got Yushin. We've got Madura. We've got Violetta. We've got Spencer. We've got Stefan. We've got Dr. Sire, the good, the great, the amazing, and we've got actually
Phil.
just call it an even 10. Oh yeah, that's an easy one. Easy. But we can't just leave it 11. That's a wrap. That's not a nice number. It's odd.
Sure it is. It goes all the way up to 11.
True.
Sorry.
I want to take 11 to 11, which is
bad
12.
movie references are my thing. So anyway,
They're great, sir. Who else? Scotty. There you go.
Oleg.
Scotty
Oh yeah, Scotty. That's good.
Yeah, Oleg too. Yeah, there we go. Lots of great names. Okay, so we've got the data, but we don't have the schema proper. So let's do that now as well. I'll go here and I'll say schema.sql, create table if not exists, customer, ID serial, primary key, 255, not null. Okay. Okay, so there's my schema. There's my data, my repository. I think we're ready. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to recompile the application. I'm not going to restart it. So friends, you can see this right here. It says recompile, Command Shift F9. I'm not going to do a rebuild. So Command Shift F9, easy travel on your keyboard. And what's going to happen is you'll see it's just recompiled, and then it restarted the application in 0.3 seconds, right? So again, we're not restarting the JVM. We're just restarting the application. And somebody is asking, wouldn't insert into customers' names value A, B, C work? And yeah, but I get paid by the lines of code. So yeah, okay. Let's see. Is the resolution only 720p? I don't think so. Can you see that font? Okay.
I can, yeah, but maybe it's downshifting with bandwidth concerns due to the number of people we have or something. I don't know.
I think VMware needs to pay for the more expensive premium StreamYard account. That's what I think. Like I pay. Why can't we? Okay, right. So we've got this application, localhost customers. Voila, écolo. It's worked. Okay, so there's our data. It's working just fine. Of course it worked. Wait, why do we have 11? What just happened there? Schema, data.
Off by one?
Oh, it was, because we have the delete. Okay, so it's still, so I want to have one more record. Oleg, you said, right? Command Shift F9. Good. So there's Oleg. Okay. Whew. Okay, crisis averted. Good stuff. So now we've got this application. It's production worthy, right? Like we've got, well, it's not production worthy actually. It's got data. We're easily up and running, able to use it. But I think it needs to be, we need to care about making this a little bit more production worthy. And to that end, there's a number of features that we should take care of. First of all, I want to introduce some error handling logic, right? And so one way I can do this is to, well, first of all, I need a situation in which I have an error. So I'll create an endpoint here, git mapping customers name, okay, collection customers by name, string, path variable, string name, okay, return this dot repository, find by name. And you might say, well, gosh, that's not going to work. There's no such method. You're absolutely right. We'll let the IDE do the talking here. Take that, ChatGPT. Did you see how that went? That was awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and Command Shift F9 that. Go here to Mark, for example, and there's the data. Great. Okay. So now we have our data. We have our find by method. Now I want to do some validation. I want to say assert that the name at the first character is uppercase. The name must start with an uppercase case. Okay, very simple example. What happens if this is invalid? It throws in a legal state exception, and I want to centralize the error handling for that. And one way I can do that is to use controller advice, error handling controller advice. So we say at exception handler, get rid of that. Okay, void handle. Okay, there's this. And I want to provide a consistent response. I'll do that with a problem details. This is a new feature in Spring Boot 3.x. So bad request.code or value. I'll say return PD. And this is actually going to give you a response that's consistent with the standard, the problem details RFC. That's this thing right here, right? So if you want a consistent representation of your error across your services, all of which are I trust, Spring and Spring Boot, then you can use this, right? Okay, so we've got a consistent error. Good. One thing I might want to do is to inject the current servlet request, right, to get access to the logs maybe. So I get the header names and I visit each one. I just visit the headers. So there we go. There's the header names. I don't really all that much care, but the reason I bring this up is because I want to mention that we have this new type, and this is our old friend, but it's at a new home. It's a new home. You see, one of the big things that you'll notice in Spring Boot 3.x and Spring Framework 6.x is we're using Jakarta EE. So some of you might remember a time ago where Oracle just stopped responding to emails, and eventually they were brought back to the table just long enough to open source the types so that they're actually open. But they did that by requiring that every new change, be it a method addition or deletion or change or something like that, has to be in a new package. Nothing is ever simple sometimes. So they did this. Here it is. It's a new type. It's the Eclipse Foundation, for their part, has done an amazing job of making sure that it's easy enough to migrate. All you have to do is to make sure that when you load the types, you do a big find and replace, the worst find and replace of your life. Replace everything from Javax to Jakarta, and you're off to the races. So, okay, we've got error handling. We've got this. I also want to make this more observable, right? And a big thing in Spring Boot is some notes from earlier. More notes. Here we go. Good. So, for observability, we had Micrometer for metrics, and then we had Spring Framework, and then we had Spring Boot, Spring Cloud, not Kludge, Cloud, and we had Spring Cloud Sleuth for tracing. And this is the old hierarchy, but the problem is that this is, if you wanted to do distributed tracing in the lower levels, you'd get a circular dependency. So now we have tracing support here, right? We move that down in the new version. And so we're going to take advantage of that. We have a new unique abstraction for both, right? So observation dot create not started. Here I'm going to create a metric, okay? And I'm going to observe this, and I'll say return that, okay? And in order for this to work, I need a pointer to a observation registry. So let's inject that private final observation registry. Okay, and we'll just inject those both into the constructor, pass that in, .registry. Very good. Now that's going to show up as data in my actuator. So I'll say, okay, show health details, great. Kubernetes probes, if you're doing that, great. I want the exposure to include all the endpoints, great. Let's go ahead and restart the application. And we'll go to the actuator, and you can see all these different endpoints. And you can see metrics in particular. There's no mention of our custom metric that we just created. So let's visit this endpoint here, /Josh. I'm going to refresh a number of times. Hopefully the refreshing is visible in the lowly 720p. Okay, and if I do that, you can see I've got this new metric here. This is all because we have this new unified abstraction for observability in Spring Boot 2.x. And with that, Mark, I think we're ready to start thinking about how to package this for production. There's obviously the first concern, which is how do I take this and turn it into a container? Obviously, this is not a new thing. You can just use build packs, right? Build packs are great for this kind of thing. This is a spec by the Cloud Native Computing Foundation. Remember, friends don't let friends write Docker files. Just use build packs. It's way, way more secure, way easier, way more resilient. And so one might even get a bother explaining how to do that all that much. All you need to know is you can go to command line service, Gradle W native compile, or Gradle W, or Maven W Spring Boot build image. Sorry, actually the Gradle command is this one. I forgot. So Gradle
build boot image, right?
build. Thank you. Yes, sir. build boot image. Okay. Hey, I'm getting a phone call right now at 2 in the morning. That's nice. Okay, so build boot image. Okay, so you can do that, but we're not going to waste time on that. We've got another concern, which is how do we make this application as efficient and scalable as possible? And friends, it's worth restating something that I think at least Mark and I have always appreciated, which is Java is already really, really, really efficient, right? This is, I think, most epitomized by this wonderful blog from 5 years ago. This is in 2018, before the COVID pandemic, or BC. And in this blog, they looked at normalized global results for energy, time, and memory. And here you can see we've got C, it's the most efficient, of course. We've got Rust, zero cost abstractions, right? By the way, C is the most efficient for machines. Just worth stressing that, not for people. Don't misinterpret me there. We've got Rust, zero cost abstractions, doing quite well as well. C++, yeah. We've got Ada, but who cares? And then moving on, we've got Java, right? And Java is in the top 5 here, most efficient languages. You can say that it is twice as inefficient as C, or put another way, C is twice as efficient as Java, okay? But still, nonetheless, doing great. If you care about the forest and you care about productivity, Java seems like an awesome choice, right, already. But look at these other entries here, friends. I don't quite understand some of these other numbers. Look at that. Go, not looking great there, 3.2 to 3 compared to Java. JavaScript, a beast as always, but we always knew this. But TypeScript, I thought TypeScript turned into JavaScript. I don't understand how this is even possible. 21.5 compared to 4.45. That's a 4 or 5x difference. I mean, that's incredible. That's just, not great at all. Really, what? And then of course these two languages about which we shall not speak. And then of course Python. And I love Python. This makes me so sad. 33.5 times more inefficient than Java, right? Yeah. Okay, so let's just agree. Java just by itself is already super efficient, super performant, and I think it owes that performance to two things. One is the just-in-time garbage collector, and one is the garbage collector, and the other is the just-in-time compiler. And the just-in-time compiler, friends, is a miracle of modern engineering. It's one of those things that allows you to write sort of garbage-heavy code and still get to production and do an okay job, right? The garbage collector can keep up with you on all but the most of ridiculous of circumstances. The just-in-time compiler also takes your code and it proactively, it adaptively, reactively turns it into operating system and native architecture-specific code. It's amazing, but it stumbles on very dynamic things. Remember, Java, for all of its stodginess and syntax words, is actually a very dynamic language that has a lot more in common with the likes of Lua and Ruby and Python and JavaScript than it does the C or C++ or something like that, right? You can actually, after a fashion, take a Java-lang string with a class file in it, turn it into a .class file, write it to the file system, load it into the runtime, reflectively call methods on it, instantiate methods, serialize it, create a JDK proxy out of it. All this after you've compiled and started to run the program, right? It's very dynamic. You can't do that in other languages, right? You can't, like Lisp, you can do that. You can create new parts of the program while the program is running. So Java is very dynamic, and that frustrates the just-in-time compiler. But nonetheless, the just-in-time compiler is amazing. And the question, of course, is if we can, reactively sort of turn our application to native code, why not proactively? Why not just turn the whole thing in? And actually, that's the core conceit of GraalVM. GraalVM is an open JDK distribution that provides a number of features, including a native image compiler. But it still stumbles on that dynamic behavior. That dynamics behavior, you can make it work, but you need to provide configuration. And the question is, who's going to provide that configuration? And I mean, we need a lot of configuration. This configuration you have to ship as JSON files, right? Spring Boot, by dint of the fact that it's the framework, is actually in a really good place to do that for you, to provide that configuration. And so in this new release, we have an AOT engine. So let's go here, terminal, GraalW, native compile. We're just gonna let that kick off and let it run. Now, but the problem here, friends, the problem is, of course, that this takes a minute, right? It takes a while, it takes enough time that actually I kind of get bored, I kind of get this, it kicks me out of the zone, kicks me out of the flow, and it's the most insidious thing, Mark, is it's not long enough that I can go do something useful, like make another cup of coffee. which, that is something that makes both Mark and I sad. But it is long enough that I get kicked out of the zone. I lose that inertia, and I regret that I finally understand this amazing XKCD cartoon, right? I'm finally in the group of people that understands this cartoon now. I didn't want to be, but here we are. This is what's happening in my life. I understand this cartoon now, and it's just really annoying, if I'm honest with you. I would have preferred that it were faster, but the results speak for themselves, as you'll soon see. But nonetheless, it is enough that I sit there and I just kind of, oh, Mark, I don't know, man. I just sit there with my head in my hands, and I'm just waiting and waiting, and I start to hear elevator music, and I thought, gosh, wouldn't it be great? Wouldn't it be great if everybody could hear elevator music? So I asked the GraalVM project at Oracle. I said, please play elevator music during the native image compilation process. And I said, I already hear elevator music in my head while I do these sometimes long running compilations. I'd just like everybody else to hear it too. Thank you in advance, and I appreciate your amazing work. And by the way, I really do appreciate their amazing work. It's stellar what they're doing there. And we got some great responses. One from our friends at Red Hat, Andrew Din. He said, why not this elevator music? This is actually, this is from the GoldenEye video game, right, from the 90s, the N64 video game. There's a soundtrack, and the soundtrack in turn had this track, which is great. I think it would have been a great choice. Good job, well done. We got another great response saying, I'd add that using beeps in general, not only for native image, really helped me to reduce the development time. Yeah, that checks out. That's pretty great, actually. Come to think of it, my freaking toaster can give me a ding. Why can't my multi-million line compiler? It seems like this should be very easy to do. So I like that suggestion. I like it a lot, actually. And then I got this other great response from Fabio Niepaut. He's a researcher on the GraalVM team at Oracle Labs. He's a PhD graduate, a doctor, Mark. You know how I love doctors. He's one of my favorite doctors, along with doctors Seuss, Strange, Subramaniam, Hu, Sire, and DeVolder and Pollock. And he said, he works on the GraalVM team, and he said, thank you for the feature request, Josh. The problem with playing music during the compilation process is that it's just fixing the symptoms, and we've been and are still working on the cause, making GraalVM native images more efficient in terms of time, memory, and CPU consumption. Okay, go on. Oh, he says, I have prototyped a -- Josh Long mode, and basically the way this would work is you'd call native image -- Josh Long mode hello world, and it would print out music brought to you by Josh Long, and then it would show. It's me. That's me. That's a photo of me. Anyway, that's the future I want to live in. Let's see what happened. But for some reason, he continues, I have the feeling my PR will be rejected, probably because of the copyright. I never get what I want. On a more serious note, we could add a -- ring bell when done option that prints the bell code after the compilation process, which is whatever. I'll take it. At this point, I'll take it.
I don't know. It just sounds like a lack of possibility thinking to me, but okay.
Yeah, no creativity here.
Right.
Seriously, innovation. Has innovation truly died? I don't know what we were doing. Oh, the compilation. Mark,
yes.
I completely forgot about it. Right. Let's see. Oh, yeah. Okay, that finished a fair number of minutes ago. So it took about a minute. So we go here, build native compile. So there it is. And the application is 80 megs. Okay, so service. Okay, it's failed. Awkward. Okay. It's because I've got the existing application running on the same port. Okay, good.
It doesn't like that for some reason. Yeah.
No. Can you imagine why? Run that again. Okay, now it's complaining because it can't find a database, which is fair enough. Remember, we're using test containers. I didn't have to specify a test database. This is just development time after all. It's expected in production. I'll have some environment variables to furnish the URL and connectivity string, the connection string, but I don't have that here. So I have let's just simulate a pseudo-realistic example here. CD talk. I've got a Docker compose file like that. I'm going to do Docker compose up. Okay, so it's spun up a database for me, and that Docker compose file you can see if I go cd desktop talk cat docker compose. The username, the password, the host, all that stuff is localhost and BP, right? Okay, so I can now run the program, and the way I can run the program is by exporting some environment variables pointing to BP, and then running the actual binary. Remember, it's called service in my downloads directory. So we'll start it up. There we go. Up and running in no time at all. We have our application. We can go here, localhost, customers. It worked. Of course it worked. It was a demo. Now, friends, I think that's a pretty good start. But as Mark is fond of reminding me, it's not nearly enough. What do we do? How do we improve upon this situation, friend?
Well, I mean, I don't know. We seem to have missed a few key pieces, maybe, depending on how you look at it. I mean, do we know that it tests out okay? Yeah, I know.
I thought the initializer generated that for me. What do you mean test?
Yeah, it kind of does. Yeah, sort of, right? Yeah, I mean, you did show the one test.
It compiled.
It gets test containers, yeah. So I actually, normally what happens in these type of situations is Josh and I kind of tag team and we do a lot of coding, but yeah, really. The rice cookers, they're also like the washers and dryer combos that you get from I think
right.
Samsung that plays you a whole orchestral piece. But anyway, yeah. So I mean, normally what I like to do is dive into the code, but I have to say I have a Copilot now, so I want to show just a very
well. You're actually a pilot, aren't you?
That is true, yeah. And it was kind of funny because I was at Build in Seattle a couple of weeks ago, and I got interviewed by the channel there, the local channel there, that kind of goes throughout the conference. And the one thing that I mentioned is we're in an interesting time, right? So we can do a lot of this stuff ourselves, which is very gratifying and very, very good. And once you kind of know your way around things, it works really well. But not all of us are at that level. So we always try to be cognizant of everybody at different levels. And no matter where you are in your journey, you may be up here in knowledge in some things and down here in others. We're all noobs in more things than we are experts, right? So so I
like your optimism.
Yeah, well, I kind of wired that way. But anyway, sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. But that's another topic for another day as well. But I always, as Josh mentioned, I'm a licensed pilot, instrument rated pilot here in the US. And I like to kind of think of development work, software development work, and aviation as similar disciplines in a lot of ways. What
would you say you're actually like in more ways than one a cloud native now?
I am in multiple ways. Yeah. So I kind of dig that. It's good for exercising the brain in different ways, firing different neurons. But yeah, it's interesting because in aviation, you have certain aircraft that they're certified for single pilot operations, right? And then you have others that require a 2-person flight crew. So it's two pilot operations. And as developers, we tend to embrace complexity, not necessarily because we want to take on extra things that fall outside of our critical path, but because we know that by doing so, we can deliver software to production, right? So we take on a lot of additional complexity that sometimes we'd rather not do, but we just absorb because that way we get the job done. And at our heart, we are problem solvers. So I always kind of look at the additional duties that we accrue as developers as winding up after you get so far down the path and then look back as being that single pilot in a 2-pilot rated aircraft. And you look around and you see that nobody's there next to you. You're just having to do it all yourself. So things like GitHub Copilot, which, as you know, GitHub is owned by Microsoft, and GitHub Copilot is a wonderful tool. AI is kind of becoming more and more prevalent in a lot of different areas, but Copilot kind of led that charge and is super useful for helping workload management, right? So it helps you along, whether you're new to a language or a framework, or whether you're not. It can foster some interesting, great use cases. There are some oddities as well, and I'll try to show you maybe one of those really quickly. But yeah, let me just pull up the screen. Josh and I kind of worked through a little bit of this. We tend to kind of have this kind of strange melange of we work through certain things because we like to work together, and we have for years. And then we other things we kind of spontaneously go, well, let's try this. So this will be a mix of that as well. So let me pull up.
By the way, I checked the code in.
Oh, sweet. I had actually just pulled down, so I'm going to go ahead and just stay with what I have in the interest of time. But
okay,
it should be close enough, right? What could possibly go wrong?
Famous last words.
Yeah, what could possibly go wrong? And why is it? Oh, tab, window. There we go. Much better. Okay, so
Make
let
sure
me
you're
do that.
presenting.
Let me shift you over here. And oh, why did that?
Oh, do you not want to be shared? I'll create a new tab.
No, let me do that because what I wanted to do, it should have shown this screen, not this window. Let me go back and make sure I didn't misclick. I bet I did. I hope I did. Entire screen. Yes, I did. Oh, thank goodness. Okay, so that's good. And then if I move you over, and it's not letting me do that, I'll do it by hand. I'll
There
do
you
it
go.
by hand. It's the hard way, but we like doing things the hard way, right? So I have just to start off here, I have some tests, and I just have a pretty stock standard test. I'm just testing while I'm doing the setup. I have a couple of records in here. I'm going to test that customer's endpoint that Josh created, and then we have a customer's name endpoint. Oh, I'm not going to get into that. We'll get into that later. So I want to show you a couple of very small things with Copilot, and then I want to take this online, and then we'll show you some other things in terms of how we land in production, because I don't want to go too far down this path. It's a neat thing to show, but I don't want to get distracted from the end goal, which is to deliver this into the hands of our users, right? So, so we've got MVC.perform, and then watch. Isn't that nice? Now, I didn't type that. I'm a fast typist, but I'm not that fast, right?
I
So
just blinked. What'd you do? I swear, I was looking at an answer.
So what magic
Do they
is
get?
this? Yeah. So yeah, I just, let me see if I can do this. Oh yes. Well, I probably should do that. Let's add an exception. And yeah, so I mean, it's a few keystrokes, which is really, really nice. Now, one thing that I do want to also show you is that if we go here, and I've just got my cursor somewhere here, I can pop open the GitHub Copilot and say, hey, look, refresh to get completions for the caret position. So I'm going to refresh that. And at this point, it's showing me basically just a couple of solutions. So that's kind of depressing because I was hoping for more. But that's probably fine, right? So that should work. Maybe let's see if I can run this if I haven't really messed anything up here. And I'm getting dry already. I'm going to have to take a drink.
Coffee. That's why we have it.
Actually, I'm switching between water and coffee because coffee gives me.
Coffee has water.
Well, true, but it makes me even drier when I'm trying to talk. So I alternate. Two-fisted drinker here. Coffee in one hand and water in the other. But so that's taking a while to start. So I may, I guess, because I have too much stuff running, maybe. But everything comes back fine. If you notice over here to the left, we've got. And I can't, yeah, there we go. I was gonna say, I can't scroll with my, with StreamYard, but I can. So we've got good test results here. That's fine. Okay. So I can check that in, but I actually, again, preemptively have checked that in. So I want to go ahead and hop over here really quickly. Let's see if I can open up. I probably should do this and do a new and bring this over and GitHub/golden path to production. Pardon me. Okay. So we're used to when we check in code and we check out code going right here, right? I mean, we all recognize this green button, right? Mm-hmm. We've done this for years, and we typically just kind of like click this on, I'm going to use the term again, autopilot, but we do this, and this is what we see most of the time, right? We see this local, and we just don't think. We click here, we go, we get cloned, we get down to work. But what I'm going to do now is just go into Codespaces, right? And Codespaces is using an open standard called dev containers, which allow you to spin up an environment in the cloud. And that way, if you have a quick change to make, or even if you have extensive development work to do, you can do that all from right here. So I'm going to just make a quick and easy change here because, yeah, why not? And I don't want to go too far down this path. Because we have, let's see, can I? I'm not sure I can. Maybe a little.
Yeah. Command ++ or something?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
So it's firing up. There we go. Okay. So
wow.
Yeah, so this isn't too bad, right? So here's the dev container configuration. You don't necessarily need to know about this. This is kind of you set it up once, and then anybody who connects can go ahead and do this. Josh can use the same dev container setup that I have. You can also have individual ones, but generally speaking, you want everybody to be kind of on the same page. This gives you a nice way to get started in a consistent fashion. So let's see, I've got my test controller here. Now, if I wanted to change this, for instance, I actually have created a couple of customers here, or we have created a couple of customers, Copilot and I, in this case. So I'm just going to, instead of, I need to indicate here that I want to return customer two, if I search for ID2. Actually, that's the ID. Interesting that I did that, but I guess I have that as a test. But I mean, let's go ahead and just change this. We'll make this easy here. I'll just do is Mark and Mark. Save this, and then we can go here. We'll do a commit. Yes, go ahead and stage and commit, and everything should be happy. In theory, things always work perfectly when you're doing live demos.
Right. Fact.
Yes. The observer phenomenon is alive and well. So we'll see. We'll see. It's checking it in.
So is this Codespaces?
This is Codespaces, yeah. And this you get, I don't remember how many hours you get. I want to say like 60 hours for every GitHub account, no charge. So if you're not using this, you should be using this at least, just to try it out, kick the tires and get acquainted with it, because it's quite a powerful capability. And for some reason, boy, it's taking a while. I think it must have sensed it was me, Josh. I should have had you do this.
Maybe you ran out of the 60 hours.
I do use it a lot.
Okay, the question I'm going to ask is, can I use this from Emacs, right? Or I mean, sorry, can I use this from IntelliJ, but also Emacs?
That just made it a lot easier to answer, actually, because when you first asked Emacs, I was like, even if you can, I'm going to tell him no. No, just kidding. Kidding. No, so it does support various different IDEs. By default, as you might expect, VS Code is provided for, but you can also do a VS Code remote. You can do IntelliJ remote. I believe the coverages or the capabilities are still in beta between JetBrains and GitHub, but it's pretty robust from what I have worked with it and seen. So 120 core hours or 60 hours for 2 cores. Oh, okay. Thank you, Deshaun.
Nice, either way.
I had in my mind 60 hours. So, and for some reason that is just ignoring me. So let's go back. I'll continue. Whoops. I'll continue with what I was wanting to show. Let me see if I can.
So this is cool. You can use that from IntelliJ and from Visual Studio Code. We just saw you log into it from the browser. So it just spun up a whole VS Code instance in situ. Like if you just want to go in there and make a quick change and have the whole lifecycle, all that stuff managed. But you can also have Visual Studio Code running as a thick client on your desktop, and you can have it automatically hydrate its environment from that as well, right?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, you can just point it to an external. Well, I was going to say with VS Code, you can run it locally as a separate instance. You can with I was going to say IntelliJ, you can use. What do they call it? The JetBrains gateway or something? I guess it is. Yeah, where you can connect it. It's been a little while since I did that. It hasn't been that long. I should remember, but I don't for whatever reason. So, and for whatever reason, it's just ignoring me now. So I don't. I assume it is checked in. I don't. Let's refresh. Oh, it's setting up your code space. Well, I may have just stomped on my stuff, but anyway. We can come back to that. We're kind of short on time. So if I do get a chance, I'll come back and try again. But I do want to continue pressing forward. Let's see. Codespaces, I wanted to show you. Actions, because we have everything deploying via GitHub Actions. So if I go here and I want to, and we have time, right?
Yeah, 10 minutes. We can do a lot.
Rerun all jobs.
So we've got...
Do that.
Right.
And
so
what happens?
What is GitHub Actions?
GitHub Actions is a way to take your project, your repo, and once it starts, it's queued. And to deploy that to a production environment, which is exactly what we were doing. We spun up an Azure Spring Apps instance in Azure, obviously, and we have GitHub Actions that is taking our repo and it's going to build that project into a deployable unit and deploy it and make the connections, and then we can go pull it up from there. And boy, it's just... I'm just shocked that it's still saying queued, and it's not.
it knows that you're waiting. It knows that people are watching.
It
And
is.
because we
It is the observer phenomenon, right? It's like the opposite of the
yeah,
mechanic syndrome. Mechanic syndrome, your car makes a noise until you take it to the mechanic, and then he, there's no
right,
problem. He or she's standing there going like, I have nothing to diagnose. Um,
right.
so this is a similar type thing. It's like there's just nothing to diagnose, but yeah, it worked just fine until now. But
Well,
that's not a
yeah.
problem.
Can you
Well,
look at the
again,
GitHub action definition?
yeah, we guess we could do that. We'll take a peek. I wonder if just the fact that Codespaces hung up, if it's just thinking there's a check-in in progress or something. I bet that's it. So yeah, just to give you a really quick overview of this, and then I want to go ahead and jump on over to Azure Spring Apps. So this is a
Mm-hmm.
sample workflow. It's the one we've got configured to go ahead and deploy from our repo to Azure Spring Apps, which I'll get into that in a moment. But basically, it's just taking and building around an Ubuntu container for Java and Postgres, and then we're deploying this via the Azure command line interface. It's just adding a few different simple commands that we need. It goes ahead and builds the project. It sets up the CLI, pulls in the artifact, and then deploys it. It's pretty simple, really. I mean,
Right.
there's no magic to it other than it just works really great. Oh, and that was enough, I guess. So it's stepping through this. I guess we should have stepped away and let it do its thing earlier. So, and it does this automatically, and you can configure different triggers. We have it just set up to where when we push a change or when we manually tell it to go ahead and deploy, it'll go and do this. So now that it is deploying, I need to wait for it to finish before I pull up Azure Spring Apps. But this does give us a chance to talk about what it is. For those of you who are in the chat, are you familiar with Cloud Foundry and remember Cloud Foundry? Even back during the time of Cloud Foundry, Microsoft and at the time Pivotal, and then eventually Microsoft and VMware felt it was very important to partner on an effort to where we could do soup to nuts, end-to-end, idea to production type of deployments in Azure. And we have a fully Spring, I don't want to say Spring bespoke, but it very much is, right? I mean, it's an environment that's tailored to the deployment of Spring applications. Spring Boot applications. So we have this crafted. We provide full support and backing from both VMware and Microsoft. So there's no, drop ball in the middle. If there's any kind of an issue at any point in time, somebody will jump in and fix it. Probably a lot of somebody's. But of course, we provide that higher level of service to where you just know it works, right? So Azure Spring Apps allows you to deploy and run your applications from code, from container images, and from jars, right? So it is your home on the internet, home in production at a global scale for your Spring Boot applications. And a colleague of mine ran just a what if test and just scaled it out to insane amounts on a single instance. It was just bizarre. But yeah, so I mean, we're not going to show you that right now because we are done. We've got a complete deploy. So I'm just going to go here and we'll pull up portal.azure.com. It's wanting me to log in. No, it did have me logged in. Good. Thank goodness. I was going to say that saves a bit of time right there. So I'm going to give you the nickel tour of Azure Spring Apps. And I'll give you about 4 cents and change, right? So we'll cover just the very essentials here. I've got a couple of apps deployed. This is just one that I was deploying for fun, but we all have our path to production application sitting out here. We see that it is running. We have one instance targeted and one instance running. We can go ahead and go to our URL. And of course, we have nothing at our root URL. So I'm just going to put in customers. And we see that we have 2 of us because that's all the data we actually put in to this latest push. But if I want to pull up Josh here, I can do that. If I want to go back and double check that we have me in there, we've got that. So everything is working, right? To go back here, we also have ways of configuring service connectors to attach to various different Azure services quickly and easily. I want to go down here now and go to, let's see, back up just a moment here, too far in. I want to go to give you a quick insight into application insights, if you will. And again, this is a very concise view because we don't have a complex distributed system that we've deployed. We have a single application. It's not really interacting with anything other than a Postgres database, which is, I mean, significant enough, but we don't have a complex distributed system of 10 or 100 different microservices, of which there are numerous instances of each. So this is a fairly streamlined example that you're seeing right here. But if we go and perhaps pull up our application dashboard, just as an example, this is a shared dashboard that Josh and I can take a look at and just by the defaults. And of course, you can customize this as well. See kind of what you're dealing with in terms of performance and memory consumption and resources and any kind of failed requests and things like that. So again, that gives you a very quick overview of the things you can do with Azure Spring Apps. As developers, again, I like to focus on delivering value to customers. And that doesn't mean doing a lot of administrative type of tasks, but sometimes you do need access to the behind the scenes pictures to see what's going on if something's going awry with your application or with your distributed system. So this gives you at least a sneak peek on what you can expect. So with that, let me see if there was anything else here. I think that
was really amazing.
Cover, right?
Yeah, I mean, so what they didn't see was you and I went to GitHub. We created a repository before we started this presentation. We put a .github/workflows/whatever.yaml. That's our GitHub Actions pipeline. That's all you need to do to enable GitHub Actions. It's free for open source projects. We went to our Microsoft Azure account, created a new Azure Spring Apps instance. It's a resource, so you can create a new one. It spun up a whole cluster, and behind the scenes, it's using Kubernetes so that you don't have to. And then we deployed, we had this Azure Spring Apps instance. There's some more infrastructure. You can buy a more sort of production hardened flavor of Azure Spring Apps called Azure Spring Apps Enterprise, which has some of the sort of Tanzu middleware, things like the config server and things like that. But it's the same basic idea, same basic approach. Either way, what a rush! We went from my nonsense to production in no time at all. It was amazing. Well done, sir.
Well, I was going to remind folks before I pull you back over where I can see everybody kind of without looking over here. But if you're interested in the repo link, there it is. It's just under my GitHub account. Josh and I are the admins, so be nice to us. Anyway, it's just golden path to production. That's it. So go ahead and check it out. We'll probably be adding and tweaking and just doing hopefully not too crazy stuff in the future. So watch it, start it, contribute to it if you'd like. But that's it. I think that's all for that. Let me go ahead and yield the screen back, and then bring you back over here.
Hey, buddy. Good to see you. Hey, great job.
All right.
Well done.
Oh, hey, great. Thanks.
So, what did we say? The Academy. Go to the Academy if you want to learn more.
Spring Academy and Spring One. We've got to cover the high points here.
Yeah. And on a high note. Actually, you did great. If we had ended on your side, that would have been the ultimate high note.
Well done, likewise. Sir. We need to get together in the same time zone, like maybe in Vegas or something, and do this for reals.
How about in August? I hear it's relatively.
I hear it'll be chilly there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Inside, indoors, it will be chilly.
Yeah. Bring your jackets. Hey, everybody. Mark, thank you, buddy. It was good to see you, brother.
Thank you. Yeah. Likewise.
Thank you, everybody else.
Get together. Good one.
Yeah. Cheers.
Cheers.